7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Alright, fuck it, I'm going in.
What's up, guys? So we're going to do something that everybody thinks, well, a lot of, at least new riders think, that changing your brake fluid is this big mission. It's really not. It's really simple. Most people actually neglect to do it. I think you should do it once every season. They do recommend you do it at least every 2 years. It is simple enough that you have no excuse not to do it every season. It really is simple. It's just time consuming, I guess, or tedious work. Probably takes like 45 minutes. Depending how good of a job you do. The brake fluid, really, the brand doesn't matter. I'm just using this stuff here. It's regular .4. I got the stuff at Canadian Tire. It literally has the same boil rate as Modal or Bellray. Once you start getting into the .4 racing, then you might get like an extra, you know, this is 446 Fahrenheit boiling point wet, and I believe when Modal is pretty much the exact same. If you get like, you know, let's say the racing .4 brake fluid, you know, you might get 490, 480 Fahrenheit. And then, of course, you have 5. Do not fucking put 5 in your brake system unless your manual actually calls for it. Check your service manual. 90% of newer bikes, you know, take .4. Maybe some of the old ones take .3. You can mix .3, .4, and .5.1. .5.1 I think has like a 520 Fahrenheit boiling point wet or something like that, but it doesn't matter. Just use .4. Any brake fluid .4 will work. Brand doesn't matter. It's all about boiling point. Get a fresh new jug. Lighting's kind of weird in here. Get a bit better light, but it is really simple. Make sure you got .4. If you want to use .5.1, go for it. If you want to use .4 racing brake fluid, go for it. It's a little overkill if you're just using it on the street, but go for it if you want. I have a one-man brake bleeding kit. I'm not going to try and sell you any brand or nothing like that, so if you want to, you can make one of these. Just go to the hardware store or whatever, grab some clear tube and a water bottle. Bob's your fucking uncle. There you go. This is it. Pretty fucking simple. And if you are making your own, because this is a one-man bleeding kit, so it comes with a stupid little nipple I can jam in the bleeder valve on the brake caliper. If you do make your own, just zip tie nice and tight the actual tube onto the nipple of your bleeder valve on your brake caliper. That way you don't have to worry about it popping off or whatever. Just a little tip. So that's all you need. We're going to go ahead and get started. Don't forget you're going to need an 8mm wrench for the bleeder valve, Phillips screwdriver. And if you don't know what a Phillips screwdriver is, that is a star. And if you want to get yourself like a little pick or something. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. First off, just kind of move your handlebars enough so that this is level as possible. You know, that's, I don't know, that's as level as I can get it. That way it's as flat as possible and as level. Cover as much as your bike as you can with some towels and rags and stuff. If you have nice rims or whatever, cover the shit out of your rims. I'm pretty cocky and confident that I'm not going to spill nothing, so I'm not going to bother, but you'd want to just cover everything up so you don't spill on there. But we're going to get your Phillips screwdriver, and we're going to take the cap off your brake fluid reservoir. Don't lose the screws. Do not. Take that off. Take the cap. and I bite my nails, so I'm just going to use this to kind of peel that up. There we go. The diaphragm and everything came up. We're just going to put this off to the side so we don't lose it. So that's it. We got that done. It's opened. You can see there is fluid in there, and we're going to flush all that out. Whatever you're using to bleed your brake fluid into is higher than your actual brake caliper. That way, when you are bleeding it out, air bubbles rise, and they'll rise up into the tube and into here. Hopefully that makes sense, but do that. There is your bleeder valve. You're going to need to remove the rubber cap covering your bleeder valve, and that is what you're going to stick the closed end of your 8mm wrench on. So put that on. So you have one side of your hose attached to whatever you're draining the fluid into, and the other side you're going to jam in there into that bleeder valve. Move that closer. Length of hose doesn't matter, but the shorter the better. You don't want it too long, because then that's a potential more air that could get in there. So if you do have a one-man bleeding kit like from Canadian Tire or some shit like that, just jam that in there really good so it doesn't come out. Like, fuck it. Hulk that shit, or zip tie it on there. One or the other. So we got that on there. Now, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Pretty simple. I'm going to move this over so I have a little bit more. So I'm going to crank it this way to open it, and right now it's closed. So right now we're going to leave that. Now when you are doing this, squeeze the lever, not all the way down to the bar. Usually I'll stick like one finger in between there and squeeze the lever down to my finger. That way I don't fully close the lever, but it gets almost all the way. Alright, so there's where you're draining your brake fluid into. You got your bleeder valve and the 8mm wrench. Just open that up about a quarter turn and slowly squeeze the brake fluid. And you can see there's bubbles. I don't know how good that is picking it up, but I see bubbles in the brake fluid. Keep squeezing the brake lever until it hits the middle finger that you placed in between the bar and the lever. Close the bleeder valve. Release your brake lever. And do it again. Open, squeeze the brake lever down. Nice and smooth. Close the valve. Release the brake lever. Open. Squeeze. Close the valve. Release the brake lever. Open the valve. Squeeze the brake lever. And just keep doing that. So it's really tedious, boring. That's why a lot of people, I think it's a bigger deal with all the air. Open the bleeder valve. There we go. Let's say you've gone down about halfway. Then you're going to come over. Because what you don't want to do is run your reservoir dry of brake fluid. So usually I'll keep bleeding the brake fluid until it's about halfway empty to a third. And then I'll top it up full again. So we're going to go ahead and do that. The smoother you do this, the less likelihood of air bubbles. So fill up your brake fluid reservoir. And once it's relatively full, put the lid back on your brake fluid. so it's not exposed for too long. And then we're going to go back over and do the exact same thing all over again. Open the valve, squeeze. And when you put new brake fluid in, you will see the new fluid eventually coming out and the air bubbles slowly getting less and less and less, and you just keep doing this until all the old fluid is out, and you keep doing that over and over and over again. And once you notice that all the new brake fluid has gone all the way through and it is starting to come out and it's pushed the old stuff out, then you just keep doing it until you don't see any more air bubbles in the line. You don't want any air bubbles, because under pressure you are going to, once the lines are under pressure, they are going to collapse, and then you're going to get a massive spongy feeling and your brakes could fail and you're not going to be able to stop properly or in time. So you just keep that in mind. It is really simple. It's not complicated. You keep open the valve, squeeze the lever, close the valve. You keep doing that over and over and over again until all the air bubbles are out, because once you close the valve and release the lever, you're not going to allow any more air back in. Open the valve, squeeze the lever, close the valve, release your brake lever. It's really simple. That works for the same on both calipers. So once you do this and you clear all the brake fluid out, you go to the right hand side and you've already cleared all the old brake fluid out of the reservoir and the larger part of the line. So doing the right side of the caliper a lot quicker, because basically you only have to clear out of old brake fluid part of a line that's like a foot long maybe or whatever. So it's a lot faster. That's one caliper. You do the exact same thing on the right hand side. Usually I will probably flush out 4 or 5 brake reservoirs full of new fluid, and then I feel confident. I don't normally get a lot of air bubbles. I'm very slow, and I don't really, I'm not in a big rush. So that's pretty much it. As long as you're, smooth with the motions, open, squeeze the lever, close, you're not going to have as many air bubbles to get rid of. You just keep doing that till all the new fluid's through. The rear brake is honestly a lot easier because you only have one caliper. It's the exact same way, except instead of a lever, you have your foot lever, and you're just pushing down on that. It's really simple. My next video, I want to do like an actual how-to video of doing a reverse brake bleed. Most people have no idea what a reverse, I can't even talk today. I don't know if I'm getting a cold or what. A reverse brake bleed is. It is a lot better. It is, I think, more tedious, but the results are better with getting less air bubbles in your line, since you are doing it completely the opposite way, and air bubbles do rise. So in theory, less likelihood of getting air bubbles in your lines. It's just a more tedious, kind of weird way of doing it. I don't know how many people have heard of a reverse brake bleed, but it is kind of neat. I prefer the standard old-fashioned way. Now once you're done doing your brake bleed, just make sure that you give your levers a good pump. Make sure that nothing's leaking out. You got your valve stems tight enough, and that it's not spongy feeling. You want it to be nice and tight, not spongy. And then just give them a ride around the block. Make sure they feel nice and tight. Heat them up. If anything goes wrong, you want it done at low speeds. Nothing should go wrong. If they do feel a little spongy and a little soft and they're not biting hard, it should be nice and smooth. Then that just means you might have a little bit more air in your lines. Just give them more of a bleed until all the air is out of your brake lines. And that's it. It's that simple. It's really easy to do. I actually think doing a brake fluid change is just as easy as doing an oil change. It's just a little bit more tedious. Open, squeeze, close, release. Open, squeeze, close, release. Open, squeeze, close, release. That's it. Keep doing that over and over and over again. So, peace, ladies and gentlemen. That feels better already.